Listen closely, my children, for this is the story of how the sky first learned to weep, and the earth drank its fill.
They say in Gauteng, deep in the forgotten valleys where the ancestors still walk, that a man who tries to cheat death will find death waiting for him with a smile. Thabo Molef knew poverty like a second skin. 15 years. 15 years of watching his children go to bed hungry. 15 years of his wife Namsa's silent tears as she stretched one potato into a meal for 5. 15 years of walking past the township where other men built brick houses while his family shivered in a rusted shack held together by wire and prayers. He was a miner once, before the accident that crushed his leg and his future. Now he sold whatever he could find, scrap metal, old bottles, sometimes just his dignity, going door to door in the rural community outside Johannesburg, begging for work that never came. But it was the day his youngest daughter, Thandai, collapsed from hunger that something inside Tabo shattered. He'd been kneeling beside her thin body, her ribs showing through her dress like piano keys, when Namsa looked at him with eyes that held no blame, only exhaustion. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But Tabo had to survive. His family had to survive. So that evening, as the sun bled red across the veldt, he limped toward the old mine shaft at the edge of the community, the one everyone avoided, where the earth had swallowed 12 men in 92 and never given them back. The place where people said you could hear whispers if you listened too carefully. The place where the boundary between this world and the next grew thin as smoke. He didn't believe in spirits. He believed in hunger. In desperation. But as he approached the abandoned shaft, the air changed. The birds stopped singing. The wind died. Even his own breathing sounded too loud, too alive in the sudden stillness. And then he heard it. A voice like gravel and honey, coming from the darkness below, Thabo Molef. "We've been waiting for you." Tabo's heart slammed against his ribs. He should run. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But his daughter's hollow cheeks flashed in his mind, and he stepped closer to the shaft's edge. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The earth trembled, just slightly, just enough to make his bad leg buckle. And then they emerged from the shaft, not climbing but flowing upward like smoke taking shape, 3 figures wrapped in shadow and starlight, their faces ancient and beautiful and terrible all at once. The Amadlozi. The ancestor spirits. The one in the center spoke, and when it did, Tabo felt the words in his bones, "You come seeking fortune you have not earned." I just need to feed my family," Tabo stammered. "Lies taste bitter on the tongue, son of the soil." The spirit moved closer, and Tabo could see now that it wore his grandfather's face, his grandfather who died in these very mines. "You want wealth. You want revenge on those who have more. You want to stop being invisible." Tabo's throat went dry. "Yes." The spirit smiled, and it was not kind. "Then we offer you a gift." The spirit smiled, and it was not kind. "Then we offer you a gift." From the folds of shadow, it produced a coiled rope. Not ordinary rope, this one seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, woven from fibers that gleamed like gold thread in the moonlight. "This rope cannot break," the spirit said. "Anything you bind with it cannot escape. Any burden you lift with it becomes light as air. Any knot you tie with it will hold for eternity. Wealth will come to you through this rope. Use it wisely." Tabo reached for it, hands shaking. "What do you want in return?" "Only this: when the rope has served its purpose, you must return it to us yourself. Bring it back to this shaft at the full moon, and your debt is paid." It sounded too simple. Too easy. "And if I don't?" Tabo whispered. The 3 spirits spoke as one, their voices layering into something that made his teeth ache. "Then the rope will collect what is owed in its own way." Tabo hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then he grabbed the rope. It was warm in his hands, almost alive. The spirits dissolved back into the earth, but their final words hung in the air like smoke. Remember, Thabo Molef. The rope must be returned. He limped home through the darkness, the magical rope coiled around his shoulder, and for the first time in 15 years, Thabo Molef smiled. He didn't notice the rope tightening just slightly around his chest. 3 months passed like a dream. Thabo's first discovery came by accident. He'd used the rope to pull a rusted car from a ditch for a stranded driver, a job that should have been impossible for a man with a crushed leg. But the rope made the vehicle weightless. The driver, a wealthy businessman from Johannesburg, paid him more for that single job than he'd made all year. Word spread fast in the townships. That crippled man, Tabo, he can lift anything. He can move mountains. Soon people came from all over Gauteng. Farmers needed boulders moved from their fields, Tabo and his rope did it in hours. Construction companies needed equipment lifted to impossible heights, Tabo's rope never failed. A mining company even hired him to recover equipment from a collapsed shaft, the same kind of shaft that had crippled him years ago. The money piled up. First hundreds, then thousands of rand. Namsa couldn't believe it. Thabo, where is this coming from? What did you do? I'm just working hard, he said, which was not exactly a lie. He bought food, real food, not scraps. Meat. Fresh vegetables. Bread that didn't have mold. Thandai's cheeks filled out. His other children stopped looking at him with that hollow disappointment. Namsa stopped crying. Then he bought a small house. Nothing fancy, but it had solid walls and a roof that didn't leak. His neighbors whispered, but their whispers held envy now, not pity. The rope hung on a hook in his workshop, gleaming. And Thabo told himself he would return it. Soon. After just one more job. One more payment. One more step up from the poverty that had nearly killed his family. But every time he looked at the calendar, the full moon came and went, and Thabo found reasons not to visit the shaft. The rope seemed to coil tighter at night, but he convinced himself it was his imagination. Until the day a man named Sizi Dlamini came to his door. Sizi Dlamini owned half the businesses in the township and all of the respect. He was a big man with bigger ambitions, and when he smiled, it never reached his eyes. Thabo Molef, he said, standing in the doorway with 2 bodyguards flanking him. The man with the magic rope. I've heard stories. Thabo's chest tightened. Just rope. Nothing magic about it. Don't insult me with lies. Sizi pushed past him into the small house. His eyes scanned everything, the new furniture, the food in the kitchen, the children's school uniforms hanging on the line outside. You went from nothing to this in 3 months. That rope is special. I want it. It's not for sale. Everything is for sale, Molef. Sizi pulled out a wad of cash thick enough to choke on. 50,000 rand. Right now. You can buy 10 ropes with this. But Thabo knew, somehow he knew deep in his bones, that there was only one rope like this in the world. And it wasn't his to sell. No, he said quietly. Sizi's smile vanished. You're making a mistake. Please leave my house. The big man leaned close, breath hot on Thabo's face. I always get what I want, Molef. Always. And I want that rope. He left, but his words hung in the air like a curse. That night, Thabo couldn't sleep. The rope seemed to glow in the darkness of his workshop, and for the first time since he'd taken it, he felt true fear. Namsa found him sitting there at 3 a.m. What's wrong? Nothing, he lied. Go back to bed. But she sat beside him instead, her hand finding his in the darkness. Whatever this is, Thabo, whatever you've done. I'm afraid. The way you look at that rope. The way you won't talk about where it came from. Please. If something is wrong, tell me. He wanted to. God, he wanted to tell her everything. But he was ashamed. Ashamed of the deal he'd made. Ashamed that he'd already missed 2 full moons without returning it. Ashamed that he was more afraid of losing the rope than of facing the spirits. "It's fine," he whispered. "Everything is fine." It was the last time he would lie to her. Sizi Dlamini came back 3 days later with 12 men. It was early morning. Tabo was in the workshop when he heard the trucks rumbling up the dirt road. Before he could react, Sizi's men surrounded the house. "Thabo Molef." Sizi's voice boomed across the yard. "Come out. We need to talk." Namsa grabbed his arm. "Don't go out there." But he saw the fear in his children's eyes, saw neighbors peeking from behind curtains, saw the guns not quite hidden under the men's jackets. He walked outside. Sizi stood there smiling that dead smile. "Last chance, Molef. The rope. Name your price." "I told you. It's not mine to sell." "Then whose is it?" Tabo's mouth went dry. "I made a deal. I have to return it." "To who?" "The spirits." Sizi laughed, and his men laughed with him, but it was nervous laughter. Everyone in the townships knew the stories. "You expect me to believe that? You're just greedy. You want to keep all the money for yourself." "No, I swear." "Burn the workshop." The words came so casually, so calmly, that Tabo didn't understand them at first. Then 2 men moved toward his shed with jerry cans of petrol. "No." Tabo lunged forward, but 3 men grabbed him, held him back. "Please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. If I can't have the rope, neither can you." Namsa screamed. The children cried. Neighbors started gathering, but no one dared challenge Sizi Dlamini. The men doused the workshop in petrol. Tabo fought like a wild animal, but his crushed leg made him weak, and there were too many of them. "Wait," he gasped. "Wait, I'll give it to you. Just don't burn it. Please." Sizi raised his hand. The men paused. "Bring me the rope. Now." Broken, defeated, Tabo limped into the burning workshop and retrieved the rope. It felt heavier than it ever had, pulsing with heat that had nothing to do with the petrol. He handed it to Sizi with shaking hands. The big man examined it, running the golden fibers through his fingers. "Finally. Something that's mine." He turned to leave, and Tabo collapsed to his knees in the dirt. Namsa ran to him, held him as he shook. "What have you done?" she whispered. "What was that?" "Everything," he said. "I've lost everything." But he was wrong. He hadn't lost everything yet. The township exploded with anger by sunset. Tabo's neighbor, Mama Zulu, had watched everything from her window. She told her daughter, who told the taxi drivers, who told everyone. By the time the sun dropped below the horizon, half the community knew that Sizi Dlamini had terrorized Thabo Molef's family and stolen from him. And these were people who'd lived under Sizi's thumb for too long. Gogo Nkosi, the eldest woman in the township, called a meeting at the community hall. She was 92 years old and commanded respect like a queen. When she spoke, even men like Sizi listened. "This cannot stand," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "A man comes with guns to terrorize a family? To steal? What are we, if we allow this?" Voices rose in agreement. Anger rippled through the crowd like electricity. Tabo stood in the back, Namsa beside him. He wanted to feel relieved, grateful. Instead, he felt dread coiling in his stomach like a snake. "We march to Sizi's compound tomorrow," declared Jabu, a young community organizer. "We demand he return what he stole. We demand justice." "Yes. Justice." But Gogo Nkosi held up her hand for silence. She turned her ancient eyes on Tabo, and he felt like she could see straight through to his guilty soul. "Thabo Molef. This rope. Where did it come from?" The hall went silent. His throat closed up. I found it. Lies. Her voice cracked like a whip. I have lived long enough to recognize the touch of the Amidlozi when I see it. That rope was not meant for this world. What deal did you make, child? Everyone stared at him. Namsa's hand tightened on his arm. I needed to feed my family, he whispered. The spirits gave me the rope. They told me to return it at the full moon. But I didn't. I kept it too long. Gasps rippled through the crowd. How many full moons? Gogo Nkosi demanded. 6. The old woman closed her eyes. Then it's already too late. What do you mean? Jabu asked. The Amidlozi do not forget debts. They do not forgive broken promises. If Sizi Dlamini tries to use that rope. She trailed off, shaking her head. We must get it back. Not for Tabo. For all of us. Before the spirits come to collect what they're owed. Then we march, Jabu said. Tomorrow. At dawn. The crowd agreed. They would march to Sizi's compound. They would demand justice. Thabo said nothing. Because he knew, somewhere deep in his bones, where the rope had first touched him, that it was already too late. That night, he couldn't sleep. The place where the rope had hung in his workshop felt like an open wound. And in his dreams, he heard whispers from the old mine shaft, the rope will collect what is owed. Sizi Dlamini had never been a patient man. The moment he got the rope back to his compound, a sprawling collection of buildings surrounded by high walls, he started testing it. He tied it around a safe that 12 men couldn't move. It lifted like it was filled with feathers. He used it to bind his enemies' hands. The knots held tighter than chains. Power. Pure power. And Sizi wanted more. Boss, one of his men said nervously. Maybe we should be careful. That old man, he said it came from. From spirits? Sizi laughed. Superstitious nonsense. This is just technology we don't understand yet. Ancient science. And now it's mine. That night, he used the rope to lift shipments of illegal goods over the police checkpoints. To tie down deals that couldn't be broken. To bind his competitors in contracts they couldn't escape. The rope did everything he wanted. Everything except let him sleep. Because every time Sizi closed his eyes, he saw 3 figures standing at the foot of his bed, faces hidden in shadow. And he heard a voice like stones grinding together, return what you have stolen. He'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat. But greed is a powerful thing. More powerful than fear. So when dawn broke and he heard the sound of hundreds of voices outside his compound walls, Sizi stood on his balcony with the rope coiled around his arm like a trophy, and he smiled. You want the rope? He shouted to the crowd. Come and take it. Tabo stood at the front of the march with Gogo Nkosi, Jabu, and what felt like the entire township. Namsa had wanted to come, but he'd begged her to stay home with the children. Whatever happened today, he didn't want them to see it. Sizi Dlamini. Jabu's voice rang out. You have stolen from this community. You have terrorized a family. Return the rope and face justice. Justice? Sizi's laugh echoed across the compound. You think you can threaten me? I own this township. I own all of you. He held up the rope, let it gleam in the early morning sun. And that's when the earth started to shake. The tremor started small, a rumble in the distance, like thunder from underground. Then it grew. And grew. The crowd stumbled, tried to keep their footing as the ground bucked and heaved. Sizi's compound walls cracked, sending dust cascading into the air. Car alarms wailed. Dogs howled. Children screamed. And from the old mine shaft 5 kilometers away, smoke began to rise. Gogo Nkosi grabbed Tabo's arm with surprising strength. They're coming. The Amidlozi are coming for their debt. No, Tabo gasped. No, this is my fault. This is. Yes. Your fault. But we all pay for the debts we ignore. The smoke from the shaft rose higher, darker, taking shape. And within it, Tabo could see them, the three figures, but now they were enormous, towering over the landscape like gods. Their eyes blazed with ancient fury. The tallest one, the one wearing his grandfather's face, spoke, and its voice made the earth itself tremble. Sizi Dlamini. You hold what was never yours to take. Sizi stood on his balcony, face pale as bone. The rope in his hand started to move on its own, writhing like a living thing. I didn't steal it, he shouted. Molef gave it to me. Lies taste bitter on the tongue. The rope suddenly jerked from Sizi's hands, flew through the air, and wrapped around his throat. Not tight enough to choke him. Just tight enough to claim him. Please. Sizi clawed at it, but the rope held. I'm sorry. Take it back. Too late for apologies. The spirits moved forward. And with them came a wind that smelled of deep earth and old bones. The compound walls crumbled. Sizi's men fled, screaming. But Sizi couldn't flee. The rope held him. Tabo Molef. The spirits turned their terrible gaze on him, and Tabo felt his bladder nearly give out. Step forward. Namsa had disobeyed him. She'd come with the children, and now she screamed as Tabo walked toward the spirits on shaking legs. You broke your promise. You kept what was not yours. You fed your greed instead of your honor. I know, Tabo whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry is a word for the living. But you. The spirit reached forward, and where its hand touched Tabo's chest, ice spread through his veins. You chose this path. Now you must walk it to its end. A second rope appeared in Tabo's hands. Identical to the first. Golden. Pulsing. Alive. What is this? He gasped. Your payment. Your choice. Your ending. And then he understood. The full, horrible understanding crashed through him like a wave. The rope in Sizi's throat. The rope in his own hands. Both would collect their debt. One debt was Sizi's greed. The other was his own broken promise. No, he whispered. Please, no. But the spirits were already fading, dissolving back into smoke and shadow. Their final words hung in the air. The rope remembers. The rope collects. The choice is yours, Tabo Molef. But choose quickly. Before dawn comes again. Tabo stood holding the rope as the spirits vanished, leaving only silence and the settling dust of Sizi's crumbling compound. The crowd stared. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Sizi started screaming. The rope around his throat was tightening, slowly, deliberately, like a python savoring its kill. He clawed at it, begged, pleaded. His men tried to cut it, but their knives wouldn't even scratch the golden fibers. Help me. Sizi gasped. Please. Someone help me. Gogonkosi walked forward, her old bones creaking. She studied him without mercy. You took what wasn't yours. You terrorized the weak. You fed your greed until it ate you from the inside. She turned away. May the ancestors show you more mercy than you showed others. But there would be no mercy. Sizi collapsed, the rope constricting. His face turned purple. Tabo looked down at the rope in his own hands. It pulsed like a heartbeat, warm and waiting. The spirit's words echoed in his mind, the choice is yours. He understood now. The rope had served its purpose, not to give him wealth, but to teach him a lesson. To show him what happened when you tried to cheat fate, when you broke promises, when you valued things over honor. Sizi had one debt to pay, his greed. Tabo had another, his broken promise. And there was only one way to return the rope to the spirits. He looked back at his family. Namsa stood there with tears streaming down her face, understanding dawning in her eyes. Thandai held her mother's hand, her small face confused. "Papa," she called out. "Papa, come home." His heart shattered. He'd spent 15 years in poverty trying to provide for them. Then 3 months in wealth built on a lie. And now he finally understood what they'd needed all along wasn't money or magic ropes or miracles. They'd needed him. Just him. Present and honest. But it was too late for that understanding to save him. "Namsa," he called out, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For the lies. For thinking I could cheat fate. For not being strong enough to just be enough." "Tabo, no." She started running toward him, but Jabu held her back. "Whatever you're thinking, don't. Take care of them," he said. "The money I earned honestly is in the account. It's enough. You don't need magic. You never did." He looked at the rope. At Sizi choking on his greed 20 meters away. Then at the old mine shaft in the distance, still smoking with the spirit's presence. The rope must be returned, they'd said. And there was only one way to do it. One way to pay the debt of a broken promise. The same way Sizi was paying his. Thabo Molef walked away from his family, toward the mine shaft. Every step felt like walking through water. The rope in his hands grew warmer, heavier, more alive. Behind him, Sizi's screams finally stopped. The big man lay still, the rope loose around his throat now, its debt collected. Tabo didn't look back. Reckoning. The walk to the mine shaft felt both endless and too short. The crowd followed at a distance, silent witnesses to a tragedy they couldn't stop. Namsa's sobs carried on the wind. Gogonkosi's voice rose in a prayer to the ancestors. When Tabo reached the edge of the shaft, the 3 spirits were waiting. "I'm here," he said quietly. "To return your rope." "The debt must be paid," the tallest spirit said. Its face, his grandfather's face, showed no emotion. No forgiveness. "I know." Tabo's hands shook as he formed the rope into a noose. The fibers cooperated eagerly, tying the perfect knot. Unbreakable. Eternal. "You understand now. The price of greed. The weight of broken promises." "Yes." His voice cracked. "I wanted to feed my family. That's all. I just wanted them to not be hungry anymore. A noble want. But you chose greed over honor. Wealth over truth. Kept the rope when you should have returned it." Tabo looked back one final time. Saw his wife being held by neighbors. Saw his children. Saw the life he was leaving behind, the life he tried to build on a foundation of lies and broken promises. "Tell them," he said to the spirits. "Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I loved them. Tell them that the rope in the shed, the one that's just a normal rope now, tell them it's enough. They're enough. They were always enough." The spirit said nothing. Tabo climbed onto the edge of the shaft. Found a sturdy beam. Threw the rope over it. The golden fibers hummed with anticipation. His hands trembled as he placed the noose around his own neck. The rope tightened immediately, not enough to kill him yet, but enough to claim him. "Please," he whispered. Not to the spirits. To his family. To God. To anyone listening. Let them remember that I loved them. Not this. Not the ending. Let them remember the mornings when we laughed together. The evenings when we were poor but together. Let them remember that I tried. I failed, but I tried. The rope pulsed once. Twice. "I'm sorry," Thabo Molef whispered. and stepped forward into nothing. The rope caught him. Held him. Collected its debt with the same efficiency it had collected Sizi's. The spirits watched impassively as Tabo's body swayed in the morning wind. Then, satisfied, they took the rope, and him, and dissolved back into the earth, returning to the spaces between worlds where debts are tallied and promises are kept in blood. 3 days later, the community buried Thabo Molef in the cemetery overlooking the valley. Gogo Nkosi spoke the eulogy. This was a man who loved his family, she said. Who suffered poverty with dignity until desperation made him foolish. Who made a deal with forces he didn't understand. Who paid the ultimate price for trying to cheat fate. Namsa stood silent, surrounded by her children. The money Tabo had earned honestly, the money from before he'd kept the rope past its return date, was enough to sustain them. Not wealth. Not luxury. Just enough. Just what they'd needed all along. Let this be a lesson, Gogo Nkosi continued, her ancient voice carrying across the cemetery. The spirits give us what we need when we need it. But they demand honor. They demand truth. When we break our promises to the divine, the debt comes due. Always. She turned to look at everyone gathered. Greed is a rope that strangles slowly. The more you pull, the tighter it gets. And in the end, we all hang by the choices we make. Thandai, now 9 years old, placed a flower on her father's grave. Papa tried his best, she whispered. And maybe that was true. Maybe Thabo Molef had tried his best. But trying wasn't enough when you broke promises to forces older than time itself. The wind blew across the cemetery, carrying with it the faint smell of deep earth and old bones. And somewhere in the darkness of the abandoned mine shaft, 3 spirits coiled a golden rope and waited for the next desperate soul to come seeking miracles they hadn't earned. Moral lesson. Listen closely, children of the soil. The spirits give gifts to those in need, but those gifts come with sacred promises. When we break our word, when we choose greed over honor, wealth over truth, when we think we can cheat fate, the debt always comes due. Thabo Molef loved his family, but he forgot that they needed his honor more than his money. He forgot that a promise to the divine is written in blood and sealed with the soul. Remember this, whatever the spirits give you, they will collect. The rope you use to climb can become the rope that hangs you. And greed is a noose we tie ourselves. Keep your promises. Honor your debts. And never, ever try to cheat the gods. If this story touched your soul, if it made you think, if it reminded you that honor matters more than wealth, then subscribe to Freeside Tales. We have more stories from the ancestors, more lessons written in blood and wisdom, more truths that will shake you to your core. Hit that subscribe button. Come back next week. Because the spirits have more stories to tell, and the debt is never fully paid. This is Freeside Tales, where the ancestors speak and the truth costs everything. We'll see you in the next story.